Selling organs just to get by. The illegal practice is leaving many scarred and broke. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Kenil Gale. Thanks so much for joining us this week. If you didn't have many options, how much would you sell a kidney for? Well, the illegal practice is gaining more popularity in Egypt. We'll tell you more about that in a bit, but right now here are some of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. A USA Today report published on Tuesday leveled damning accusations against one of Jamaica's most popular all-inclusive chains. The story also quoted figures from the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica, which suggested that every month, at least one American tourist is raped on the island, and resort employees are the main perpetrators. Shoshana Small has more.
Although the article only details stories of rape victims over a 3-year period, it claimed that assault on U.S. female tourists has been happening in Jamaica for years. It pointed to figures from the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica, which suggested that over the past 7 years, 78 U.S. citizens have been raped. And just last year, 12 U.S. citizens were raped. 6 of those rape incidents occurred inside resort hotels and were committed by resort employees. For its part, it says the U.S. Embassy has issued warning to visitors about the number of sexual assaults perpetrated by resort workers on the North Coast. Currently, Sandals Resort International's Beaches Resorts has a lawsuit in a federal court in Florida, but the article says Sandals is trying to get the case dismissed, arguing it doesn't belong in American court, but should be transferred to Jamaica because the defendant, witnesses, police, and potential evidence are there. But in a statement to BATV News this evening, the all-inclusive hotel chain says it can't comment on the issue as it's still before the courts. However, Sandals was quick to point out that it takes the safety of its guests seriously and conducts background checks on employees while conducting extensive training on appropriate guest interactions. The hotel says it also has a zero-tolerance policy for fraternizing with guests. In the meantime, the tourism ministry is starting some damage control. In a response to the article posted on Facebook, tourism strategist Delano Seavright said the ministry is aware of the article. He argued that where cases of assault are identified, they're being given full attention. He also said the ministry is committed to ensuring that Jamaica is a safe and seamless destination.
Meanwhile, the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA, in reacting to the story, strongly condemned the sexual assaults and other violent incidents against visitors and citizens. The organization said they have taken note of the USA Today article, which references 78 reports of sexual assault against American visitors over the past 7 years. The GHTA noted that at no time has there been any attempt by the hotels to deceive or cover up the incidents. They say whenever there is an incident, the entity involved communicates and cooperates immediately with the police, the Jamaica Tourist Board, and other stakeholders such as embassies to resolve the issue, and where necessary, let the law take its course. The association said its members invest in special staff training to ensure the safety and security of guests. After months of trading at an all-time high, the Jamaican dollar is now appreciating again. Economist Dr. Damon King says this is because the demand for the US dollar has changed, while financial analyst Dennis Chung is crediting the Bank of Jamaica for the local currency's recent gains. Here's more.
The Jamaican dollar started the year trading at $125.37, but on June 8, it started an upward climb, trading at $130.20. By August 23, it was trading at a record high of $137.96. This caused shock waves across Jamaica. But last Thursday, the Jamaican dollar finally went back below the $130 mark and has continued its stride, ending today's trading at $128.93. Economist Dr. Damon King says this is because the demand for the US dollar has weakened.
If we have a few weeks where demand exceeds supply, the exchange rate moves up. If we have other weeks where demand is less than supply, exchange rate is going to move down. And so that's all we are seeing now, that the exchange rate is responding on a daily and weekly basis to these shifts in relative demand and supply.
Dr. King says this is possible because the exchange rate is no longer the only thing that affects inflation.
Up until 3 years ago, inflation was the dominant consideration and would so relentlessly drive the exchange rate up that the effect of differences in supply and demand ended up getting swamped. So we mostly saw it going up. Now that the inflation factor has diminished, because we now are in a period where Jamaica can bank on low single-digit inflation rates, then the effect of relative demand and relative supply is now more apparent.
But he says persons have not been creating a buzz around the dollar's appreciation because of how Jamaicans use foreign currency.
Most Jamaicans are net users of foreign exchange. They get more concerned about a rise in the exchange rate than they do a fall in the exchange rate. Those few who are net earners of foreign exchange have the opposite reaction, that they pay more attention when the exchange rate falls because that harms them than when the exchange rate rises because that benefits them.
In the meantime, financial analyst Dennis Chong is crediting the central bank for the Jamaican dollar's appreciation.
I think that they saw that it was moving too fast and they stepped in and sort of tried to curb it a little bit. When they think that there's demand that is not accounted for with any logic, then if the dollar is behaving irrationally, they'll step in and do that.
However, he says based on the nature of the exchange rate, it's not unlikely that the dollar will depreciate again.
The dollar is going to fluctuate based on demand and supply. So, I don't think there's anything much different from that.
The government says several public-private partnerships should be generated from the many infrastructural projects to take place across the island within the next 5 years. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Darrell Vaz, says Cabinet will soon begin reviewing plans for more private sector involvement as the country expands its infrastructure. Minister Vaz was speaking at a forum put on by Money Masters in Kingston on Tuesday. More in this report.
Minister Vaz says the government is aware of the significant role that the private sector plays in stimulating economic growth, and that is why the administration is looking for more public-private partnerships to help develop the country's infrastructure.
There is finally a cabinet submission, which is currently being reviewed now to take to cabinet, and I think some directives will come out of that in terms of how do we move about, especially with government circle fast moving ahead in terms of the parliament building and the government services in and around. That ties into downtown, and there will be room for PPPs in several areas, not only in the government square as we call it now, but several other properties and locations in and around downtown.
Meanwhile, President of Money Masters, Claudette Crooks, is calling on the private sector to secure business opportunities and invest in infrastructure funding, which she says is $1 billion industry.
According to IP Real Assets top ranking of the world's largest infrastructure investors, capturing $360 billion US of investments in aggregate, the average allocation to infrastructure is about 3%, but 3% of a big figure is quite large. The 3% of that big figure totals around $360 billion US dollars. For Jamaican funds, it's an area that we absolutely must grow if we're going to participate in the development of our country.
Moving on now, Egypt is one of the countries most affected by organ trafficking. Widespread poverty means criminal gangs can easily trick or pressure people into selling their organs. While authorities have passed a law specifically designed to combat this illegal trade, big loopholes remain.
I came to Cairo to try and make a living, but I didn't find a job. Someone suggested selling a kidney for money. I asked how much, he told me $8,000, I said yes.
When Ahmed arrived in Cairo 3 years ago, he thought he could make ends meet by selling one of his kidneys for money. But for this young Sudanese refugee who did not want to show his face on camera, the operation turned into a nightmare.
I came out of the operating room and I was taken to an apartment. I still felt the effects of the anesthesia. I slept a little, and when I woke up, there was no one left, nothing. I just found 50 euros under the pillow. Now I'm sick and tired, and I still feel a lot of pain.
Undocumented migrants are an easy target for organ traffickers, as are the poorest in Egyptian society. According to the World Health Organization, Egypt has one of the highest rates of illegal organ transplants in the world, after China, the Philippines, and India. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Cairo is well aware of the problem.
Socioeconomic difficulties generally pose a lot of challenges on refugees and non-refugees, and it can push a lot of people to adopt negative coping mechanisms to try to survive the day-to-day challenges of our lives. That being selling their organs, refugees and asylum seekers can be exposed to a wide number of risks based on that vulnerability.
In Egypt, the sale of organs is illegal. Only donations are allowed. But by promising large sums of money or using threats and intimidation, organ traffickers easily force their victims to sign a donation authorization. In this kidney center in Mansoura, Professor Mohammed Ghunaim has made the fight against the illegal sale of organs his primary focus. He says the existing laws are easy to circumvent.
The poor man or woman who is ready to donate will go to a police station and make a statement, approved, stamped, that she is donating her kidney for the sake of God, for the sake of spiritual reason. So if you print this paper, this document, I'm donating my kidney for you for the sake of God, spirit, whatever, okay. On the surface, no financial elements are involved, but in fact, there is a financial element.
Finding a kidney in the classifieds or on social media in Egypt is shockingly simple. Middlemen openly leave their contact information and telephone numbers on Facebook. We contacted one of them.
Hello? فصيلة ايه موجب.
تمام اللهم صل على النبي. هو التكلفة التوتال كله بيبقى من 180 ل 190.
190 بس حضرتك هتتكلف بالعملية وكل حاجة صح؟
كل حاجة بالمتبرع بالأشخاص كله.
بس ده مش غالي شوية ولا ايه؟
بص انت تعمل في مستشفى أول حاجة 5 نجوم على إيد أكبر الجراحين.
To confirm the offer was real, we sent a hidden camera into the hospital mentioned by the organ broker, a medical institution in central Cairo not known for organ transplants. Once inside, a hospital staffer immediately explained the process.
وبيبعتك معمل وانت بتشوف المعمل ده بياخدوا تحاليلك وعيناتك وهم عندهم بقى ناس عاوزه تتبرع بيوفقوك
عند المعمل. طب بتكلف كام مثلا لو رحت عند المعمل او كده؟
لا ما اعرفش والله.
بس هي بفلوس صح؟
بس طبعا انت عندك المتبرع الواحد ممكن ياخد 50 40 غير بقيه العمليه 50 40.
In recent months, several high-profile trials of organ traffickers have made headlines in the Egyptian press. But with a law that's easy to circumvent, it's unlikely that authorities will be able to properly crack down on illegal organ transplants.
Company news comes up next, then later, India erects the world's tallest statue in honor of one of its founding fathers. Stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Palace Amusement promises Portmore Cinema, Wisynco wants more exports, and CIBC First Caribbean Bank gives JPS multi-million-dollar US loan. Here's this week's company news.
Palace Amusement Company is looking to open a 4-screen theater in Portmore, St. Catherine next year. The company received a huge revenue boost from the blockbuster hit Black Panther during the 2017-2018 financial year, with revenues moving from $990 million to $1.16 billion during the period. The company says the 17% jump in revenues was directly related to the large number of moviegoers who came out to watch the box office hit. Wisynco Group is reporting more than $25 billion in revenues for the first half of the year. That's some $3 billion more than what they recorded for the same period last year. Wisynco says 2019 will be even better for the company as as they plan to roll out several products during the financial year. Most of the new products being developed are reduced sugar alternatives, Bigger, Water, Cran Water, Boom, and Squeeze, which the company hopes will better penetrate regional markets. CIBC First Caribbean International Bank and JPS recently signed a $60 million bilateral senior term loan. JPS says the loan will support its planned capital expenditure and debt refinancing. Meanwhile, the bank says the loan, which consisted of both US dollars and Jamaican dollar tranches with a fixed to floating interest rate, was tailored to satisfy the needs of JPS.
Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When we come back, more of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. Jamaica has fallen 5 places in the latest World Bank Group's Ease of Doing Business report. The 2019 report, which was published on Wednesday, saw the country being ranked at 75th. However, despite the fall, Jamaica is still the highest ranked Caribbean country. Here's more.
The World Bank Ease of Doing Business report measures regulations that enhance and constrain business activities in over 190 countries. This year, Jamaica ranked 75 overall out of the 190 countries, falling 5 places when compared to the 2018 ranking. The report says Jamaica has improved access to credit information by distributing data from utility companies and also expanded its scope of information collected and reported by credit bureau or registry. Jamaica is ranked 6th when it comes to starting a business, falling from 5th place last year. The fall in ranking occurred even though the island maintained its processes to start a business of only requiring 2 procedures and a 3-day turnaround time. There is undoubtedly a construction boom on the island. However, when it comes to dealing with construction permits, Jamaica is ranked 76, an improvement to its ranking of 98 last year. The positive movement can be attributed to the increases in the country's overall score for dealing with construction permits and the Building Quality Control Index. Reading further into the report showed that Jamaica is ranked 115 when it comes to getting electricity, a fall from its 91 ranking last year, despite the fact that it still takes 7 procedures and 95 days to get it done. The slip in ranking can therefore be attributed to the country losing 6 points in the overall score for getting electricity after all the various other factors are taken into consideration. Jamaica is ranked 131 when it comes to registering a property, slipping 3 places from the 128 ranking last year. It now takes 19 days and 8 procedures to register a property instead of the 18 days that same 8 procedures took in the last report. Meanwhile, the report also showed that Jamaica has experienced reductions in the time it takes to prepare documentation following training programs or pilot tests when implementing the automated system for customs data as SUCADA. In the meantime, as Jamaica sits in the number 1 spot regionally, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada are the other countries rounding out the top 5 Caribbean countries in the overall Ease of Doing Business ranking.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark is seeking to quell concerns that Jamaica is relying too heavily on loans from the Chinese to fund major infrastructure projects. He says the loans from the Chinese are only a small portion of the national debt. More in this report.
Earlier this week, President of Money Masters Limited, Claudette Crooks, expressed concerns about the government's reliance on loans from China to fund major infrastructure projects. She said the country might have to turn over assets to China if the government can't repay these loans. But Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says Chinese loans are a very small portion of the national debt.
Our debt is 100% of GDP, which is good relative to where we were. 100% of GDP is a pretty big number. GDP is approximately $2 trillion, Jamaican dollars. So when we say the national debt is 100% of GDP or trending towards below 100% of GDP, what we mean is that the national debt of Jamaica is 2 trillion Jamaican dollars as at September 2018. And loans from China represent a mere 3.9% of that total. A very small share.
Additionally, the minister says these loans are at very low interest rates.
99% of the loans that we have outstanding to China, 99% of the loans that make up 3.9% of our entire loan stock are at interest rates that are fixed at 2%, and some of them are at 3%. Among the lowest interest rates in our entire loan portfolio.
Minister Clark adds that most of the loans from China will be repaid within 10 years.
90% of the debt that we have outstanding to the Chinese Exim Bank, as at September 2018, 90% of it matures and will be repaid within 10 years.
Jamaica's current unemployment rate is the lowest in the country's history. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin is reporting unemployment is at 8.4% as of July. That's the lowest since the start of the labor force survey in 1968. According to Statin, this was due to a rise in construction jobs and other service-related jobs during the period. Jamila Maitland tells us more.
Nearly 13,000 more people were working in July this year compared to July last year, bringing the employed labor force to 1.2 million people and the unemployment rate to just 8.4%. Director of Survey Dr. Natalie Simpson says this is the lowest the country's unemployment rate has been since 1968 when the labor force survey started. She says the industry groups construction and real estate renting and business activities accounted for the largest increases, each group employing at least 9,000 more workers.
When you look at that disaggregated by sex, construction was mainly males. So the 9,400 persons who gained employment in construction, that was predominantly males. And then for females, it's in the industry, wholesale, retail, repair of motor vehicles. And in terms of occupation, what we're seeing is the category service workers and shops and market sales workers, that there was an increase of 13,600 persons. Okay. And this is followed by craft and related services.
Dr. Simpson says the labor force has also decreased by 2% during the period, which contributed to the lower unemployment rate.
There's an increase in the number of persons outside the labor force. There was an increase of 4.7% between July 2017 and July 2018. So what you find is that when the size of the labor force is smaller, the outside persons move to outside labor force. So they could have retired, for instance, as well as they could be going back to school.
When we come back, India unveils massive statue to honor a founding father. More on that after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. The Indian Prime Minister has unveiled a 182-meter statue, which is the world's tallest, to honor one of the country's founders. The statue, called the Statue of Unity, cost $430 million. Al Jazeera's Charlie Angeli reports.
Twice the height of New York's Statue of Liberty, India's independence hero looms large over the country he helped unite. Sardar Patel was known as the Iron Man, and his 182-meter effigy is partly clad in bronze. At his feet, Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid his respects, hailing the Statue of Unity as a beacon of inspiration.
Brothers and sisters, this, the world's tallest statue, will keep on reminding the whole world and our future generations about Sardar Patel's courage, capability and resolve.
Patel is a hero to Hindu nationalists like Modi, and he's making political capital out of the statue. With a museum at the bottom and a lift to the top, the government also hopes the statue will draw tourists to this remote part of Modi's home state, Gujarat. But many locals believe the project, which cost $430 million, is a waste of public money. Just 3 weeks ago, farmers marched against the falling price of their produce. They say money spent on the statue should be used to prop up commodity prices. And families forced to relocate to make way for the statue are also angry and unhappy with their compensation. Patel was India's first interior minister and deputy prime minister. He persuaded feuding states to unite and become part of the Indian state after independence. Both political parties are keen to claim his legacy, but critics say a true tribute to Patel would not be in 67,000 tons of concrete and bronze, but in fighting for farmers' rights, as he did. Charlie Angela, Al Jazeera.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.